Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today I want to show you how to make a cozy and super easy sleep mask. There are lots of patterns for sleep masks that you can find online. Not everybody has a printer these days, right? So I want to show you how you can super easily just draw your own pattern using a coffee mug. This mug is a little less than 4 inches. It's 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. That's going to be perfect for you to draw your pattern. All you're going to need is some scrap fleece or flannelette, a little piece of batting for the inside, and then about a 15-inch piece of elastic. You need a piece of computer paper, a ruler, and a pencil, and your coffee mug. Easy peasy. You can decorate it if you want. You can embroider somebody's name on it or a cute little message. It's just lightning fast, so let me show you how to make one. To make your pattern for the sleep mask, you're just going to take a piece of computer paper and fold it in half. Good. Okay, and now we want to draw a 4-inch square right from this folded corner. So I'm going to mark up 4 inches or 10 centimeters and down at 4. Okay. Then we're going to take our mug. So I'm going to put it upside down and I'm going to snug it right into this corner. Snug it right into that corner and draw there and put a little notch right at the top of the handle. And then I'm going to slide the mug down into this corner and draw around there. Good. Now, I'm going to draw a little bit on this side, but then I'm going to draw a line 5/8 of an inch from the bottom and come in 5/8 of an inch. So it's up 5/8 and in 5/8 to there. Then I'll take my mug and just smooth out this funny shape there. I'll just smooth that right out there. Good. So that's nice and easy. I'll extend that notch in there now. And then I'm also going to put a notch about 1.25 inches or 3 centimeters from the fold. And now with paper scissors, I'll just cut that out. And then to snip my notches, I'm going to snip on one side of the notch and the other. And then just get that out of there. So snip on one side and then the other. There we go. So there we go. There's the perfect sleep mask pattern. We need to cut 2 from fabric, 1 of batting. Good. Okay, so let's cut that out. So the fabric I'm going to use is some scrap fleece. If you get kind of hot at night, you might not want fleece. You might want something like flannelette on the inside, and you might want something like satin on the outside. And this is the batting I'm going to use. This is a cotton batting. It's called Warm and Natural. It's not too thick or puffy. It's just soft. Good, so I'm just layering. You could cut these out separately, but I'm going to cut them out all together. So I'm making a little stack here of my batting and then my 2 pieces of fabric. And because it's 3 layers, I definitely want to pin that. And then I just want to snip those little notches. Good. These 2 notches are where the elastic will go, and these 2 notches mark the gap that I'm going to leave on top when I sew that together. And there's my 15-inch piece of elastic, and now we're going to make a sandwich. First, I'm going to take one of my fabric pieces. I'm going to pin the elastic to that notch on the right side of the fabric. And then bring the other side, make sure I haven't twisted the elastic, and bring the other end of the elastic to the other notch. Good. And this can just bunch up in the middle. You want to make sure it doesn't end up getting caught in your seam. You could even put a pin there in the center just to make sure it doesn't stray into your seam anywhere. Good. Then we're going to take this other piece and put it right sides together with the first. Good. And then it all goes on top of the batting. Good. And I'm just going to put a pin at that notch. That's where I'm going to start. And I'm going to finish there. And I'll put a few pins around, making sure my edges come together. Anytime you're turning something through a gap, you always want the gap at a straight section. It would be very difficult to finish it off nicely if the gap was on a curve. So find your straight section. That's where you're always going to leave a gap when you're having to turn something, like on a pillow or a stuffed animal or anything like that. Leave a gap at the straight section. So now if you're worried that you're going to forget to begin and end at those pins, double them up. I'm going to be starting here and going around here, and I'm only going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance or the edge of my presser foot as a guide. Okay, so I'm going to be running the edge of my presser foot right along the edge of my fabric, starting at that first set of double pins, and I'm just using a regular straight stitch. Because this fleece is stretchy, it would be very easy to sew in some puckers, but I'm just working it in as I go. You can even use a pin to help you work it in like that. And then stopping at that second set of double pins. Good, so I've sewn around that whole outside edge at a 1/4 inch, making sure I caught all my edges. Now this is a 1/4 inch seam. It's not going to be very bulky at all, but if there are some areas that are bigger, I can trim those off just to reduce the bulk, so that when I turn it, it's soft around the edge, especially if there are any tighter curves. I can trim that down. But on a soft fabric like this, you don't have to snip on all of your curves all the way around. It's just not necessary. Where it's bulky here, I can just trim off the batting just to reduce some of that bulk. And on this curve too, do you see where the batting just doesn't need to extend past the seam allowance? So that'll reduce the bulk enough. I really just don't have the patience or the need to just clip all my curves all the way around. That will do just fine. And now I'm going to look in between here, not between those 2 layers, but between these 2 layers, between the 2 right sides. I can take out that pin that was holding the elastic out of my way. Okay, let's flip it right side out. Good, so you want to just push that seam out all the way so the curve is nice all the way around. That's pretty dead easy, right? At this point, I would try it on. If I find that the elastic is too loose, then I would have to go back in here, do this from the inside, not from the outside. I would just undo a few stitches there, pull the elastic maybe another inch out, and then sew that bit again. But I think it's pretty much perfect. I think the 15 inches is a good average measurement. I'm going to close up that gap by hand. I just think it doesn't look as nice if you sew that closed by machine. I'm going to trim the batting a little shorter just between the notches. I want the 2 edges to fold in together. Pin there. I'm going to use a ladder stitch. I'm going to hide my knot by sticking my needle inside that fold. Now I would of course normally use a black thread or matching thread to close this, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing, so I'm going to use a bright red thread. So the ladder stitch is just like rungs of a ladder. You're just going to be sewing straight across and making your first rung and taking 1 step down. And then going back across to make the second rung of the ladder, going straight across and take a step down the ladder. Again here. So now I've got 3 rungs of the ladder and 3 steps down. You can see why they call it the ladder stitch, right? There's your rungs, they're each a step down. And then watch what happens when I pull the thread. Even that bright red thread totally disappears. I'm not taking a stitch in here, I'm just taking a stitch right at the folded edge. Good. And when you've closed up the whole gap, now just before you cut your thread, you're going to tie a knot by just taking 1 last little tiny stitch where your thread's coming out. Just make a little tiny stitch, put your needle back through the loop that forms. Let's do that a second time, back through the loop. And then before you cut your thread, put your needle in and come out anywhere. Pull your thread tight so that when you cut your thread, the tail is hidden on the inside. You don't have any tail of thread out. So there you go, you are done. If you had a cottony flannelette, I would definitely give it a nice press right now. But this fleece does not need to be pressed, and in fact, you could melt it with your iron. So you just kind of give it a finger press. Okay, everybody, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed making a pattern by using a coffee mug. Hope you had fun with that. I hope you learned something. And if you did learn something, you know what you gotta do. You gotta hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for joining me today. Take care.